Are you looking for inspiration on a daily basis? Then check out Deal to Heal Tees. With our inspirational tees, you're sure to find something to inspire you. That's dealtohealtees.com. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear inspirational tea and be inspired all day. Let's go to dealtohealtees.com. Again, that's dealtohealtees.com. Hey guys, if you're enjoying this podcast, then I know you enjoy the Girl Dad Discussion podcast. I'm your host, Ernest James, and I believe the relationship between a daughter and her father is one of the most important relationships a young lady can have. And therefore, my mission is to promote the daddy-daughter relationship by sharing the voices of girl dads to the world. So check out our podcast on every platform where podcasts can be listened to. And if you want to watch the podcast, check us out on our YouTube channel. Again, that's the Girl Dad Discussions podcast with your host, Ernest James. Welcome to Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. On this podcast, my guest and I will discuss topics and ways to help us to heal in every area of our lives. I believe that everyone can live a life that is happy, healthy, and whole. So I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get to it. Welcome to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. I am your host, Ernest James, and I believe that everyone can and should live a life that is whole, heal, and healthy. Therefore, I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. Thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. If you haven't already, make sure that you listen, like, and subscribe to our podcast on all of your podcast listening platforms, as well as make sure you guys check out our new YouTube channel, right, which is the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network. We were the Deal to Heal podcast by itself, but now we're bringing you more podcasts, and so we've turned our page into the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network. So make sure that you guys go and check that out on YouTube, and also make sure you guys check out our partner podcast, which is the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. On that podcast, I talk to other girl dads like myself about the relationship with our daughters, and sometimes I even have daughters on to talk about the relationships with their father, all in order to combat the narrative of the absent father and the fatherless daughter. So make sure that you guys go and check that out. Also, our product of the week, as you guys know, we are a self-sustained podcast, and the way that we stay on the air is by bringing you amazing products for you to purchase. That way we can pay our bills. So our products of the week is our Purpose Journal, as well as our Purpose Planner, because I believe we need to journal in order to keep track of where we are in our lives and the things that we've been through, all the while also planning for our future. So make sure you guys go to Amazon and check out our Purpose Journal and Purpose Planner. The links to it is in the description, so make sure you guys go and check that out. All right. So today, just like any other day, we are blessed with the guest, Mr. Chris. How are you doing today?
Hey, fantastic, Ernest. Glad to be here.
Yes. So first of all, let me say thank you for being here, because you could have been anywhere with anyone else, but you're here with me and my listeners, and I definitely appreciate it. And so we're going to jump right in, Chris. I'm going to start off with two questions that I don't always ask, but I do ask certain people these two questions, and we had a short conversation before we got started. And as you guys know, I am a girl dad, and so whenever I'm on the podcast and I have a girl dad as a guest, I always start with two questions. The first question is, what does it mean for you to be a girl dad?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a blended family of eight, of eight kids, and five of them are girls. And I've never considered myself a girl dad per se, because I always thought you had to have like straight all girls, no boys, right? But I'll tell you what it means to me is definitely it softens you up. Like it helps you really understand like the sensitive nature and really what it means to be a protector and a provider and that kind of thing. And so for me, I think that's kind of the big role is how you show up in that healthy masculine and be there, be present for them.
All right, all right. Well, I also share this a little bit with you that I have five sisters because I'm one of nine, right? So I definitely understand what that household is like having five sisters. But the second question I'm asking you is, tell us something that your daughters have taught you.
Oh my goodness. I think the one-on-one attention that each one needs, because I mean, everyone has different needs. They're all unique and they don't all want the same thing, right? So if anything, it taught me to really be flexible, to listen and just really, yeah, just be attentive to who they are and what they need.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. All right, all right. So now we're going to jump right into the meat and potatoes of this podcast, right? Which is the Deal to Heal podcast. So, Chris, do me a favor, introduce yourself to my listeners and tell us who you are and a little bit about what you do.
Yeah. So many people call me like an anti-financial advisor because I think financial advisors suck for one. So that's part of the reason. The one thing I'm all about is cash flow, as you can tell from my shirt here. If I get the microphone out of the way,
Yep, cash flow freedom.
freedom, right? I mean, that's a big thing. And I'll tell you that the reason I say that, like I'm an anti-financial advisor, because I started out being the mainstream financial advisor. Over 20 years ago, I was the salesman in a suit, the person that just sold you crappy mutual funds and told you, hey, put your money here, you'll become millionaires in 40 years or whatever, right? And after 4 years being in that business, like, because I was raised, very middle class. My parents divorced when I was young. I lived with my mom at a trailer park for some time, and then eventually moved in with my dad when she decided to go on the road and be an artist and things like that. And so I knew I wanted to pave my own way. I wanted to make my own stake in the world, and I didn't want to be the typical 9 to 5er, right? So that's where I wanted to have a business. And of course, growing up where money was always scarce, like you'd always hear things like, hey, we can't afford this. What do you think I am, made of money? Money doesn't grow on trees, those kind of
Right.
things. So I was like, I don't want to be like that. I want to be different. And so I actually dropped out of college and became an entrepreneur and went down that financial advisor path. Now, I was selling the dream, right? Selling people on hopium, that they hope they'll be able to retire someday and all that kind of crap. And 4 years in, my dad said, well, when are you going to become my financial advisor? And I understand my dad was like the super penny pinching saver. He wouldn't buy anything unless it's on sale in bulk, right? So I remember eating Cap'n Crunch for like a year straight. It was on freaking sale, and Fruity Pebbles one year, Cocoa Pebbles the next year, all because they were like dirt cheap, sold, past expiration date type cereal, and that's what I lived on growing up. It's amazing I'm alive today, actually. But so I'm sitting down with my dad, and he's like, all right, I'm 61 years old. I want to retire. And understand, this guy actually paid off all of his debt, including his own house. So he was mortgage-free, debt-free. He'd been socking money away into his 401k, like every good boy and every good little girl should do. And then as I'm looking at his numbers, I said, Dad, if you want to retire today, you better hope you die in 5 years, because that's when you're going to run out of money. He's like, well, what am I supposed to do then? That's not exactly a great plan for me. I don't want to die in 5 years. And I said, well, I don't know. You did everything right from what I taught as a financial advisor. And so that bugged me. It bugged me a lot because he was kind of the inspiration that got me in, because I thought, he'd always tell me that work would literally kill him. He already had strokes and heart attacks by the time he was in his 40s and 50s. And so I wanted to give him his life back. And here it is. He's doing everything that I was teaching other clients to do, and he couldn't do it himself. So just a few weeks later, I call up a friend on the phone. I trained him to be a financial advisor, but then he quit on me to go do this thing called real estate investing, right? And him and his dad started partnering on some deals. And lo and behold, he's like, Chris, life is awesome. My dad and I have partnered on some deals, and we've actually doubled his income from his job. I'm like, wait, you just started doing this 4 or 5 months ago. That's too good to be true. There's no way that's possible. And he kind of challenged me. He says, Chris, well, how many of your clients are financially free? Well, none. Well, how about this, Chris? How many of your financial advisor friends are financially free, not off the commissions they're earning, not from the business they're doing, but actually from the investments they've been recommending? And as I was really honest with myself, I said, well, none. Like, there's your problem. And so I started taking that matrix red pill, right? I started going down a different hole. I actually quit being a financial advisor, vowed never to teach that crap again because it was out of integrity, right? It's not working. Why keep teaching it? And so I started doing more things with real estate investing. And later that next year, when I was 28 years old, I was able to retire myself, where I had enough passive income coming in that I could quit. That I did not expect. I did not expect it to be that easy or that quick. And so as a result, of course, I didn't know what to do with my time. All my friends are working jobs, obviously. So it's not like I can hang out with them in the middle of the day. So I ended up, coming out of retirement in 2007 to teach people how to do what I did, how to get out of that rat race, right? And that sort of thing. And that's kind of where my story leads till today. I mean, I've had ups and downs. We can talk about some of the, where I went from millionaire to upside down millionaire after that during the recession, right? Yeah. But I mean, that was the thing, is that I was really, now in a place where I was work optional. I worked because I wanted to, not because I had to.
Right. Okay, cool. I want to jump into that a little bit, because one of the things that you said, which I'm glad that you said, was that you stopped being a financial advisor because of the integrity of it, right? And so that's a rare thing that I run into, right, with entrepreneurs, and especially depending on what they're selling, whether it's advisor or insurance or these different things. Is like they're selling you things that they don't even use themselves, or they're selling you, policies or something that they wouldn't even buy themselves because they know it don't work. I have a cousin that's a insurance agent, and that was one of the things that she sat down with me and talked to me about, was like, you really have to pay attention to your numbers, which are in life insurance and things of that nature, because you will run out of money. Like you said with your dad, you're doing all these investments, and like, you're going to make so much money. And then when you actually do the numbers, it's like, no, you're going to run out of money. You know what I mean? So I like that you said that, because I think that's a big thing, and I want to congratulate you on that too. But also, I want to go back a little bit, because I'm just thinking with myself and growing up. I know when I was younger in high school, we had what was this class called? Home economics. Is what it's called, and they kind of taught us not really financial advice or anything like that, but they did at least teach us how to balance a checkbook, things like that, right? But they don't have that stuff too much anymore, and so I think financial literacy as a whole is very important in this time, especially coming out of the pandemic, because I tell everybody, if you don't have a second, you need a job, but if you don't have something that you can make money on your own after going through the pandemic, like, what are you doing? Because that showed you that at any time everything can stop. So the only thing you can keep going with is something that you can control. Lucky for me, should I say not lucky? I don't know. I'm still on the fence of whether I was lucky or not, right? Because I'm a bricklayer by trade. So the construction industry didn't stop. Then I also do home health care. So that side didn't stop either, because they needed both of them. So I was an essential worker. So I had to keep working. But I always say I'm on the fence about that, because everybody else was at home. I was like, I want to sit at home and get some free checks.
No kidding.
But I wasn't able to. But I probably wouldn't have enjoyed it as much as I think I would have, because I actually like to work. But just going back to what I was saying, with the finances, or not having something, where you can make some kind of income on your own without, the necessarily job coming through the pandemic, I think is a I don't know, it's a must at this point. You know what I mean? You got to
Yeah.
have something to call your own. And so you're kind of leading to your experience of the pandemic and what happened with your business. So let's first of all talk about a little bit about the importance of financial literacy and having some kind of income that you can control, and then also we'd like to get into your story.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. I mean, 2020 was very telling, right? Because, who would have ever guessed that all of a sudden certain businesses or jobs would become non-essential businesses, right?
Mhm.
Like never even heard of that before. And now all of a sudden people were like furloughed, laid off. I had one client that was seriously furloughed for over 2 years before he finally was able to work his job. And I'll tell you, I was so grateful with that because we teach our clients how to create enough passive income from like investments, getting their money working harder for them, so they have to work so hard for it, right?
Yeah.
And so we were doing that kind of thing and helping them do it. And he was one of those guys where he had enough money coming in, just enough to pay his bills, even when all that was happening. And I'm very grateful because when he got his job, now also all the money he's earned from his job is just gravy at this point, right?
Mhm.
I had another client. I mean, if you want to look at any industry that got shut down more than any during the pandemic, at least within the United States, right? And that's Hollywood, because I
Yeah.
mean, Hollywood, they shut down. They didn't want to do anything other than Netflix. And on top of that, they also get shut down last year because of the writers' strike and everything else, and the actor strike. And so they keep shutting down all the time. And I have one client that was the case, with him, where he works as a set designer in Hollywood, and every time they shut down, I mean, luckily he had about 3,500 a month coming in, where he needed about 4,000 a month to live. So we kept to make sure that he had some good savings on the side, and that money coming in allowed him that when it did open up or things are starting to open up, he didn't have to take any crappy job that it came along. He could be
Right.
a little bit more selective and say, you know what, I want that job instead because, that's a low budget film that's going to overwork me and underpay me. I'm not doing it. I'm going to do this one instead. Right. And that's power. If you really think about it, that's why every person needs other streams of income outside of their main job or business. Because if you don't have that, really, you're just walking around like a time bomb ready to go off. You're just waiting for that time to get laid off or forced retirement. That's what happened to my dad, right? He got into his 70s, he had to keep working, and he got to the point where he was forced because of health reasons. He couldn't work anymore, and now he's just trying to stretch out every dollar. So I think, yeah, financial literacy is key. Like you said, it's not about balancing checkbooks anymore. I mean, knowing about debt, but I don't want people like doing like the typical Dave Ramsey crap, right? Like where it's like scarcity mentality with money, because then people have guilt and shame with money. They've got, other issues where they feel like they shouldn't ever enjoy life until they finally hit whatever goal. And then it's like the freaking cats in the cradle song, right? Where, the dad's, feeling horrible because by the time he finally wants to be with his kids, the kids already moved out on the life of their own. They don't want to be with their dad anymore, right? And people are delaying their life for someday and not today. So
Mhm.
financial literacy needs to happen quickly. But I challenge people to say, don't just follow any financial advisors because they're just trying to sell you their own bill of goods to delay your life till someday. Don't follow the typical person that always says, oh, just pay off your debt and keep a budget. That's great, but that's not everything. You got to know how to play good offense and defense, right?
Mhm.
Defense for the budgeting and the spending and the debt and all that kind of stuff, but a good offense to know how do I actually generate money? And that's the one thing that's missing out there today.
Yeah, yeah, and I agree with you 100% with that, and even myself, with the podcast and my ebooks and other things that I'm getting into, trying to do that same thing to create that um passive income,
Mhm.
because like I said, I'm a bricklayer by trade, 17 years now, and I had something happen to me the other day that has never happened, right? Since I've been a
Mhm.
bricklayer for 17 years. I actually got dehydrated on the job, and my
Oof.
hand locked up like this, and I had to pry my fingers open, and then every time I move it, it locks back up, right? So I ended
Wow.
up having to drinking a lot of water and electrolytes and all that stuff until it loosened up. But that's never happened to me in the whole 17 years that I've been a bricklayer. And so just knowing that, and then I think they raised our retirement age again for like the second or third time, and just looking at the writing on the wall, like, yeah, I can't be doing this when I'm 70. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like it's I love it, but I do know it's a wear on my body. And so I know my job is not the only job that's like that. There's a lot of hazards in a lot of our different jobs, things that we have. Which is why it's so important to like you said, learn about different investments and things of that nature, so that you don't have to rely on physically having to do the work yourself,
Right.
because you can only physically do so much. Either you're going to get older and then God forbid you get sick or anything like that, then now you're really screwed, if you don't
That's
have
right.
some kind of income coming in. And so I want to ask you, you mentioned a little bit about your story and being a millionaire and going upside down in it.
Mm-hmm.
And how did you get out of that, hole of debt? Share with us a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, so I mentioned in 2007, I came out of retirement to teach people how to get out of the rat race, right? How to have enough passive income to quit if they wanted to. Well, I was doing that, but the people we were talking to at the time, I had some partners. We got together, created this company, and we were on this mission to help people. Well, a lot of people we're talking to were real estate investors, and if you recall from 2007, 2008, the real estate market crashed, right?
Mhm.
It was miserable, and so all the people that we thought were going to be paying us money couldn't pay us the money anymore. And a lot of us put a lot of our money and even, I even like started opening up, business lines of credit and things like that to get the office going. And next thing I know, I'm not making money there. Plus my own real estate was suffering a little bit too. And so as a result, it was like that perfect storm, but in like a George
Yeah.
Clooney kind of way where everybody dies, sorry, I guess I just, had a spoiler alert there, but but it's kind of like that, right? It was not a good thing. And so by end of 2007, I realized when I started looking at my money, because I was kind of ignoring it, because when money's coming in abundantly, it's like air. You never count the number of breaths you take until the air is gone, right? And that's the same thing with money. You start counting the money when it's gone. Well, when I started to actually look at it later in 2007, I realized I was in the hole over $15,000 a month between my business and my personal life. That's how much I was short.
Mm.
So I was falling pretty fast. My savings was dwindling quickly. My debt was running up. Not to mention, of course, my real estate values are tanking. And so that's where I had now over $1 million of debt that really I had nothing with it other than a little bit of assets, but it was more like I had to sell off. Like I remember my house got foreclosed in 2009 because I couldn't keep making the payments. It was literally a week before my fourth child was born, right? My youngest son was born then. And I had to ask the guy, I was like, listen, can I pay you a couple grand just to stay in this house for a few more weeks until we find a place, basically have a baby, and then go find some other place to live? So my wife at the time, she was pretty much having postpartum depression, crying while we're trying to move out of our dream home into a much smaller house to cram all of our kids into and rent, right? We're doing that, and that was like the last of my money that I had. I was literally had no money, no credit. I was just living day to day on welfare, literally on food stamps, and everything else, asking for handouts from family and friends, collectors calling me at all hours of the day. I mean, it was pretty miserable. Not to mention, I felt like an imposter because remember, I was the guy that's supposed to have it all figured out. Now I'm back. Now I'm literally a guy on welfare. Needless to say, by 2008, I wasn't teaching people how to get out of the rat race anymore because I didn't want to feel like a hypocrite. So I
Right.
started teaching people how to find money. Like, how do we find money? How do we get creative? Because the truth is, people were asking all that time. Because everybody else was suffering too. So they're saying, Chris, I would love to hire you to learn more about money, but I don't know. I don't have the money. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I'm broker than you are. So I wouldn't say that verbally. That's business
Right.
suicide, right? But I would say, man, I'm broker than you are. So I would come back to them and say, listen, if I can help you find the money to pay me, would you pay me? They said, well, yeah. I'm like, great. Let me show you how. And so I'd show them like creative ways to find cash, whether it's creative ways to like pay off debt without using a lot of money, moving money around, tracking money, saving money on taxes if they're a business owner and things like that. And so I started doing that and people started paying us. And we were almost in bankruptcy in 2009. Our whole company was. Almost everybody had quit by that point, jumped ship. It was just myself and a partner and like one other guy. And fortunately, like this whole cash flow process we started to create really from my own pain, right? From all the experiences I was having personally, I was able to apply to my clients to help them find more money who are in healthier positions. And what ended up happening is it got to the right people, like especially in the chiropractic and the dental communities, to where all of a sudden it exploded. And we went from almost bankrupt in 2009 to making 5 million in revenue in 2010. And that was the start of helping me dig out of the hole. Obviously, it didn't solve all my problems in 1 year because I
Right.
didn't get to keep all 5 million, obviously, you know, but still, it was really cool to start to dig back out of that. The funny thing is, of course, even when things are going well, it's never a straight line up, you know, and you know this in the healing journey, right? Like
Mhm.
you finally like break this plateau, you finally maybe break through this subconscious belief, right? And you're like, oh, this is awesome. Like this is a revelation for me. Now I'm not bound by this. And then some other crap comes up because you peel that onion layer off and then there's still a stinky onion underneath. You got to peel back more layers to get to the center, right? Well, same thing with me. Eventually, 2 years later, I'm getting kicked out of my own company and having to start over. And so I started Money Ripples in 2012. Had to start from scratch with a non-compete. So I had to start with brand new relationships. I actually started focusing on women entrepreneurs because that was the one market I knew the other guy hated. So I went with women entrepreneurs and started doing that and trying to rebuild again. And even went through a divorce in 2015. Again, no money, horrible credit. I had a credit history, but it wasn't good history, right? It was the kind that if you get your name right on an SAT test, that's the kind of credit score I had too. It was like a 480 credit score. I eventually was able to kind of slowly dig my way out, and especially even after the divorce, once I kind of really kind of healed some things with money, healed some things with how I was running my business and being stupid in it. Eventually, I was able to flip things around and get really profitable in my business. Had a lot of profit. Was able to take that money and start investing it. And by the end of 2016, I was out of the rat race again. Now I'm making like 10 grand a month passively. And then at that point, by 2015, 2016, when I was starting to do that, then I started teaching people how to get out of the rat race themselves, right? Because I was now doing it myself. And that's how I kind of got past the imposter syndrome, but also really how to just, I really believe that if you're going to have somebody that's a mentor or a teacher for you, get somebody who's been there, done that, but also still doing it today, right? Someone who's still practicing. They're not like a has-been, like someone who's like, yeah, back in the 90s, I did this. No one gives a crap what you did in the 90s. It's a different world today. Can you replicate it and do it today? If you can, you're the person I want to learn from, right? Like that's the people I love to hear from. So that's kind of what happened in my situation too. And funny enough, even though I got to the point where I didn't have to keep working, that's the point when everybody wants to work with you, right? That's when everybody starts knocking on your door. So luckily I've started to get a team and built a team to support me. And now we have a multi 7-figure business that today is serving many, many people.
Yeah, yeah. And you said something, and I really appreciate it. And I was going to say it, but you said it, of having somebody, if you're going to have a mentor, have somebody that's been through what you're going through, right? And yeah, I'm listening to you tell your story, and I'm just like, knowing the end result is that you got through all of that, in order to rebuild and to get where you are now. And I'm like, yeah, that's who you want, right? That's who you want to learn from. The guy that's like, look, because again, my story too, being divorced and starting over. I was a um uh executive pastor of our church that I helped start, and we had a 10-year run. And when COVID hit, it shut our church down. And I also went through a divorce around that time also. And so just a lot of things starting over and things happening too, even in my own life. And so I definitely can understand. It's like, man, so even now when I come on and I talk about deal to heal and the things that I've been through, my divorce and depression and debt, you know what I mean, and suicidal ideations and all those things, I can talk to people about it because I've been through it. You know what I mean? And I've made it on the other side of it. So I can, talk to you and relate to those people that, listeners who may be dealing with those things. And so when it comes to finances like yourself, you've been through the ringer, right? You've been through all of those things. So now it's like, hey, I'm not just telling you something, again, going back to where we started with the integrity. I'm not just telling you something and selling you a dream, but I'm telling you something that I've lived through and telling you also selling you something that is proven that I've used myself and still doing it. right? Which is always amazing, when you have someone who don't have to, made it to the point like, I don't really have to do this if I don't want to, but because I believe in it, and I also, have a heart for helping people, doing it through the space that they're in. That's the person that you want to follow. So I'm
Right.
so glad that you're here, man. I know you have a podcast,
Mhm.
right? So tell us a little bit about the podcast and what we can expect to hear when we tune in on the podcast.
Yeah, it's the Money Ripples podcast. It's not your plain old boring financial advisor podcast, that's for sure. It's definitely more about how to create freedom and prosperity today, right? How do you get your money working harder for you so you don't have to work so hard for money? It's kind of like what the science says behind me, right? Live your life now, not tomorrow. How do you actually do that? And so that's really the focus of the podcast, is really how do we create that life of freedom? And as you already know, it's not just the strategies, it's also the mindset to go with it. You got to have both. You got to have them. It's like a 1-2 punch. You got the mindset, you got the strategy working in harmony together, and man, you can get amazing results. But at first, the first thing you have to do is change the mindset. You have to change your whole belief around money, the way that you've been taught about money, even by well-meaning, intentional people. You got to change it and get it to a point where it's actually a wealthier mindset. If you get into a wealthier mindset, you can actually create wealth.
Yeah, I love it, and definitely understand. Coming from that viewpoint, number one, mindset is definitely one of the most important things, because it's like you say, you give a person that you give a broke person $1 million, they'll be broke again soon. You know what I
That's right.
mean? But if you can change the mindset so that they don't have a broke person's mindset, and you can give them less than $1 million, they can earn $1 million. You know what I mean? It's like just
Mhm.
by changing the way that they think and changing the way they view money, and definitely growing up, especially not necessarily in my household, but in my circles, should I say, you hear, like you mentioned earlier, money don't grow on trees and things of that
Mhm.
nature, those sayings, and then one of them, growing up in the church, is like, money is the root of all evil. It's like,
Mhm.
that ain't what it says. You know what I mean?
Right,
It's
it's the
like,
love
and
of
it,
money.
it also says so. It also says that money answers all things. So it can't be both, right?
That's
So
right.
there's a disconnect. We're like, no, the love of money is the root of all evil, and money does answer all things if you wise with it. There's sowing and reaping, and there's seasons, and all of those things that play a part in our money and understanding our money. And like you said, definitely having a wealth mindset will enable you to be able to create wealth, and to get that. So I'm so glad that so glad to have you on, man, and listen to your story. I want to ask one last thing, because we're talking about it, and I just want to give our listeners just a little bit of something tangible, right, that they can take from this episode, and we talked about, number one, we talked about the mindset,
Mhm.
changing the mindset, but also we talked about, different things that you can do in order to start to kind of work your way out of, the position that you are financially. And so if you can give us something, one little nugget or something that, where we can start, right? We're in this space like, you know what, Chris, I want to start doing something different. I've been putting the money to the side, but I know I can't retire today because
Mhm.
it's definitely going to run out. Where can I start just today? Like, what is something we can start with today?
The best thing is I teach 3 different money mindsets. 2 of them don't work. 1 does, right? We all know the spenders don't make money because, well, they make money, but they can't keep it,
Yeah.
right? And then you got your savers. And these are the ones that everybody is teaching you the financial education around being a saver. Set it and forget it, put it away. Hopefully someday you might have something, right? But you can never save enough in that scarcity mentality.
Mhm.
The best mentality is to become a wise steward. And obviously, I know you teach out of the Bible, stewards all over the place. It's all
Mhm.
about stewardship. How do you magnify? How do you increase upon the blessings you have? Like the parable of the talents, right? In the Bible,
Yep.
same thing. Like, how do you increase upon it? Don't bury it like your saver, Dave Ramsey, will tell you, right? Don't do that. That guy, his got taken away, gave it to the guy that made 10, So you don't want to be that person. You want to be the person that actually create more. And so like one strategy I teach some people is, other than just tracking your money, right? The key is you actually do need to start saving to be a wise steward. And so start watching your money, watch how much money is coming in, watch how much money is going out, both sides of the equation, right? Don't just look at what you're spending, look also what you're making, because the truth is you can only reduce your costs so low. Then you're living in a cardboard box on the street, and that doesn't work
Right.
well, right? So you can only go so far, but the income is limitless. How can you, and here's the secret. Here's the secret that for me was formulaic, that changed my life forever when it came to making money. Stop asking, how do I make more money? But start asking instead, how do I create more value for more people? Dollars follow value. You mentioned the law of the harvest, right? You only reap what you sow. You got to sow first, reap second. How can you go about serving people, solving problems, or adding value in a way where their lives are better with you in it than not having you at all? If you can figure out how to deliver something of value, solving problems for these people, right? If you can do that, you will never want for money because you're giving them what they want. If you give people what they want, you'll never want. That's the key. And so again, if you just ask for money or you feel like you're entitled to something, you're not entitled to jack squat, right? You're entitled to really delivering that value, serving people with your gifts that you've been given, and using that in a way that solves problems for them, to where they say, I want to exchange these dollars to get that in my life because my life is better with you in it. That is the secret to wealth. You do that, you increase your income, and then you start taking some of that money and building it. I don't care if you put it under a mattress. Eventually, you can take that money and invest in things that create passive income. But if you can increase that income by focusing on serving people, solving problems, and always looking for the win-win, I'll tell you, you will never want again.
Yeah. And that's the key. That's the key to it, especially getting into entrepreneurship and things of that nature. Is like, what is the best business? Helping people. Just
That's right.
simple. Helping people. If you can help people and whatever they're going through, whatever they're dealing with, if you can serve them in a way, like you said, that is valuable, you can make money. And that's what any business, if you look at any business that's ever been created, is helping people in some kind of way, right? To do something better, do something easier, make their life, better or simpler or whatever. But
Yeah.
that's the key to it. So to all my entrepreneurs out there, or want to be entrepreneurs, or just again want to just change your financial situation, looking for places where you can serve people and there's an income somewhere in it. And I always say your income will follow your impact. So serve people, make an impact in their life, and the increase that wasn't what I was going to say, but I forgot what I was going to say. But the increase will follow, right? So make sure you guys do that. Chris, I'm so glad that you were on. I really appreciate you, taking out the time to share with us tonight. I want you to have the last word, right? I don't want you to leave us with a word of advice or something, inspirational, however you feel. I'll let you do that. And also leave us with your social media handles and where we can find you in order to work with you. I'll give you a couple seconds to think about that. To my listeners, I want to say thank you guys once again for tuning into the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. One of the things I want you guys to do, if you are thinking about starting your own podcast, you guys can get my ebook called Start Your Podcast Now in Only 3 Steps. I created this ebook because I was getting asked so many times of how do I start a podcast, and was just going about doing it and helping people start their podcast and giving advice. And so I said I'll make it easier on myself and for them by writing an ebook. And this ebook is called Start Your Podcast Now in Only 3 Steps. It can be found at ebooksbyejames.com. Again, that's ebooksbyejames.com. If you ever thought of starting a podcast, get your copy of the ebook. Also, I want you guys to make sure you're checking out our websites, right? So if you go to dealhealfulfill.org, that website, you'll be able to find more about me and the things that I have going on as a podcaster, as a speaker, and as an author. And also, you guys, there you can hire me, you can book me to come out to be able to speak at your school and also at your organization or anything like that. And also going back to what I was just saying with the Start Your Podcast Now book. I wrote the ebook, and now I've also turned it into a workshop that I'm doing at grammar schools and high schools, teaching children how to start their own podcast. So make sure you guys check out the website at dealhealfulfill.org. That is more, find out things about me and what I have going on. Also, make sure you go to ebooks by ejames.com to see all of our ebooks that we have available. Of course, we talked about the podcast ebook, but there's also an ebook called From Males to Men. There's an ebook called Forgiving Me, the 4 Steps to Self-Forgiveness. And also there's an ebook called The Core 4, which is the core 4 values that every daughter should get from her father, which is one of the sections of the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. We actually talk about the information that is in that ebook. So make sure you guys go to ebooks by ejames.com in order to check out our ebooks. And also there's a link there where you can become an affiliate of our ebooks and earn 50% of whatever your guests spend when they visit ebooksbyejames.com. So you guys can find that. Also, go to dealtohealtees.com. That is our inspirational t-shirt line. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tee and be inspired all day. Again, that's healtees.com. You guys can go there, check out our inspirational t-shirts, and also check out our podcast merch, which is our t-shirts with our podcast logos on it for the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, as well as the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. And last but not least, I've been blessed to be a part of an organization called the Forgiveness Mission. And what we do, we have free virtual workshops every other month. We used to do it every quarter, but now we do it every other month. We have free virtual workshops talking about forgiveness, what it is, what it's not, what it means to forgive, and everything surrounding forgiveness. I think it is a very important topic, and I think it's very necessary for all of us to have forgiveness in our hearts and forgiveness in our lives. So whenever you're listening to this, either a web workshop just ended or there's one coming up, you can go to forgivenessmission.com in order to sign up and register for that free workshop, or just go to Eventbrite and look up Forgiveness Workshop hosted by the Forgiveness Mission in order to take part in that. So that being said, Chris, once again, I'm very thankful to have you on. Also, thank you for taking out the time to be here. I want you to have the last word, so the floor is yours.
I'll just say this, there's always hope. There's always hope. No matter how bad you think your life is, no matter how far gone you think it is or how hopeless it might seem, just look at my own situation, my own story, right? I was flat broke, collectors calling me, friends stopped calling me, I mean, even my wife was talking about moving out with our kids, and taking them to their sister's house until I figured out my crap and everything else. Like I was losing everything. But if I can go from over $1 million in debt, have no money, no credit, and dig back out of that hole, I can guarantee you can do it too, and probably do it better. So I just say this, there's always hope. There's always hope. The persistence, don't give up, keep leaning on faith. And you'll realize that if you do the right things with that faith with works definitely is not dead. It's that's what creates all life. So be sure to do that.
All right. You want to leave us with your social media handles and your website?
Yeah, it's all Money Ripples. So moneyripples.com, and the social media handles are all at Money Ripples, and even the Money Ripples podcast. Everything's Money Ripples.
All right. Thank you so very much. We can't end to no better than that. To my listeners, thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, where our mission is to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Until next time, you guys be blessed. Thanks for listening to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Remember to listen, like, subscribe, and share. This episode has been brought to you by Deal to Heal Tees. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tee and be inspired all day. Let's go to dealtohealtees.myshopify.com. Remember, our mission is to help you to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for listening.